Hello and welcome to No Longer a People Pleaser. My name is Tina Rose, and people pleasers are my people. This is what Love from On High informed me about almost a year ago. And ever since then, I have been putting myself out here and talking about my story, what I did, my people pleasing patterns before I healed, how I healed, and how I continue to heal, and what I'm doing now. So today's content is going to be around putting ourselves in other people's shoes. This is something that we've gotten really good at as a people pleaser. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to start right out the gate telling you about something that I did one time that I felt might be a good example of might be considered healthy empathy. Okay. And what it is, I was reminded of this experience, and this is why it came to me. Everything dropped in, the memory of it, and my guides, and my higher self wanting to say something about this and build some content around it. It was just a few days ago when we had a day where it was 100 degrees here. And that's a little warm for June, maybe, but somebody was talking about how hot it was, and I thought, well, this is nothing. I remember 20 years ago, we had a record hot of 107 in early June. I think it was on the first day of June. So that memory dropped in my experience, my awareness, and I started telling her the story. And this is how the story goes. That day it was 107 degrees. And I had gotten off work maybe a little bit early, but, and my then husband and our daughter met me at a restaurant. And we had a mid afternoon or early dinner. And on the way home, I was driving in front, and my daughter and my then husband were in the car behind me. Well, I got pulled over for speeding. And I mean, I was in La La Land. I was just having a good time. I was driving along. I'd look in the rear view and see what they were doing, and I'd wave, whatever. So I wasn't really paying good attention, apparently, because I was speeding. And the policeman, um, he was standing there. He said, after he got out and he was talking to me, he said, pull up right up here so we can be more out of the way, and I'll finish talking to you. So I said, well, what about if I pull up and turn right just there and you'll be in the shade? And the reason I said that was because I just got to chill, was because it was 107 degrees that day. He was standing in the sun. The sun was bearing down on him. And I don't know about policemen in other states or other countries, but this poor guy had on all black, long sleeve shirt. It was a police uniform, and the uniform was polyester. Shirt and pants were polyester, all black, long sleeve, long pants, and he was standing in the sun in 107-degree weather. I quickly, that wasn't anything manipulative. It just came to me, and I thought, this poor guy, he's blocking the sun off me, and he's really got to be boiling because I'm cold natured. And long story short, he didn't write me a ticket. And when I told people about that experience, their jaw dropped. They could not believe it because I was speeding in a school zone in a 25 when school was getting out. And they were like, Tina, you got to be kidding me. That is unheard of that you did not get a ticket. And I told them about that experience. And it all goes back to, this is a perfect example of A Course in Miracles. At the beginning of the book of A Course in Miracles, it goes through a long list of, I don't know how many, 30, 50, 70 descriptions of what miracles are. And one of the descriptions that talks about miracles says that every interaction is one of two things. It's either an extension of love or a call for love. And that experience was me extending authentic love to this police officer. I wasn't even thinking about trying to work around a ticket. And some people would joke to me and say, "Oh, you were flirting with him," and stuff like that. I had no pre-thought of what I was doing. I just knew that it needed to happen because this poor guy, this other human, had to be roasting. And I actually saw him for a moment. It was like, man, he's going to have a heat stroke. But anyway, so that's what happened. And so that was an example of true, healthy empathy. And us as people pleasers have developed a strong, empathetic muscle. And sometimes we go overboard. And that's what we're going to talk about here. But real quick to finish out that story because I think it's cute. So when I got pulled over by the policeman, and my husband and daughter went on by me and went on home. And when I got home, as soon as I walked in the door, my then husband had that song ready, queued on his phone. And as soon as I walked in the door, he started playing I fought the law and the law won. He was thinking for sure that I had gotten a ticket, but I didn't. And I said, nope, the law didn't win. I didn't get a ticket. And he too, he was like, I can't believe you didn't get a ticket. I was going at least 45 miles an hour. And it was 25 at that time in the school zone. So I was going, what's that, 20 miles over the speed limit? Anyway, I just thought that was a perfect story example. But as people pleasers, we become highly skilled at putting ourselves in other people's shoes because for many, it was a survival strategy. That's how we grew up. Empathy became a form of scanning. Well, what does this person need? How is this person feeling? What will keep the peace? What can I do to avoid disapproval and conflict? And over time, this can make a person, in this case, people pleasers, exceptionally perceptive. They can read a room quickly and anticipate needs, sense emotional shifts before others even speak. We do that, right? I'm good at reading energy, and I'm pretty sure you are too. That ability can be a gift. I feel like that was the earlier example of the police officer not giving me a ticket was. But when it becomes chronic, empathy can turn into self-abandonment, and I did it over and over and over again. What happens when you live in other people's shoes too much is you lose contact with your own self, with your own feelings, with your own needs, meaning you stop feeling your truth and your limits because your awareness is always scanning the external. You may ask, what do they want? Before you even consider, or never even consider, I didn't, what do I want? Compassion becomes over responsibility. And I just had a memory of in my college days, I was riding with someone. I was giving someone a ride. We were in the parking lot at college, and they said, "That's my car over there. You can let me out right here." I said, "Well, that's okay. I'll just drive all the way around because it happened to be another warm day, and so that you don't have to walk so far in this heat." And I remember them just stopping and looking at me and thinking something. And they said, You're a compassionate person. And that's just part of the story, talking about compassion. But it can become an over responsibility. You start believing someone's pain means you must tolerate harmful behavior. And an example is if they are acting this way because they had a hard childhood. That's what we're thinking when we start putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And we overthink it. Maybe they're acting rude to me because they had a hard childhood. And we start making up excuses for them. And that may be true, but it doesn't erase your right to stand in your boundaries or to have boundaries. And another example is you over explain away your own hurt. You're making excuses for them and you're explaining away your own hurt. And I have even recently caught myself doing this. And these are all habits and they're deeply ingrained patterns that takes us a long time to overcome. And I'm on the other side of it and I still catch myself here and there doing things similar to this. Because you can see everyone else's side of things, you minimize your own when you're a people pleaser. You say, maybe I'm being too sensitive, or they didn't mean it like that. I've done it so many times. And thinking these things can delay and cause you to suppress anger and grief and the truth about how you feel. And I did this, yeah, I was really good at making excuses for other people. And a big example in my life is when I used to um, help in the operations of a private school that my daughter went to for autism. And I was very involved in the daily operations. And I also was the um, fundraising lead uh, at that school. And I would do so much. And I didn't get paid. It was all volunteer. I practically worked there full time. And then I did the fundraising committee uh, after hours, so to speak. It was just fun to me. I did it because I wanted to. But one of the parents one time, about 3 years into it, me doing all that work and devoting all my time and effort into it, one of the parents recognized all that I did for the school and how she felt like I didn't get recognized for it. And I excused it away. I said, no, it's nothing, whatever I said, um, and just made excuses for other people. That's okay. I mean, they got enough on them with their kids and this and that. And yeah, it's just part of the people pleasing and overextending myself. And also ways that you can be um, overly empathetic. You become emotionally porous. It's like you're absorbing um, other people's emotions and experiences without any strong internal boundaries. Other people's emotions move through you like they're your own emotions. And I know for a long time in my adulthood, even into my adulthood, that I did this and I wouldn't recognize it, but I would feel it without knowing what it was. I would come home at the end of the day and I would have absorbed so much tension from other people and people carrying guilt, and I would be feeling it and feeling responsible for everyone's comfort, and I would just be completely shut down at the end of the day sometimes and just in tears. And I didn't really know why, but I had to get it out, and so I'd cry a lot. And Resentment builds quietly. And it's not, resentment doesn't have to look like revenge or wanting to get somebody back. Or for people pleasers, it can look and feel like um, something that's not anger necessarily. It can feel like frustration and not really knowing why you're frustrated, for one thing. I have started some content around everything around resentment from the perspective of a people pleaser. And maybe I'll do that another time in a separate video. But people pleasers often skip over their own inner world. And resentment is often the psyche saying, I keep leaving myself behind, but never doing anything about it to change it. You confuse empathy with loyalty. I was so loyal, so overly loyal. Sometimes staying in painful dynamics feels noble because you deeply understand the other person. And that was very much my last marriage. My husband, then husband, had definitely had a traumatic childhood as well. And I felt his pain. I knew his heart. And that's why maybe a part of it is why I was just so loyal to the relationship and keeping the family the way it was as far as the three of us together. Overly loyal, but understanding someone and having empathy for them is not the same as being aligned with them. And that's what I had to learn. That was a huge, huge lesson it took me. I knew halfway through the marriage that I didn't need to be in it anymore because I didn't feel the way I did when we first got married. When we first got married, we were the perfect couple. But as I grew spiritually and expanded, then it was no longer a good place for me to be. And I wasn't aligned in that relationship anymore. And here is the healing shift in all of this. Mature empathy says, I can understand your experience without abandoning my own. That's the balance, not your shoes instead of mine. For recovering people pleasers, one of the strongest metaphorical muscles to build is your discernment muscle, the ability to know what is yours, what is theirs, what is your responsibility, what is their responsibility. Healthy, emotionally mature empathy is powerful. And a strongly developed discernment keeps us out of that overly empathetic trap that we can put ourselves in. So work on that discernment, which I have talked about in many videos. And until next time, from myself, my higher self, and all my guides, we see you, we honor you, we love you, and we trust you. Talk to you next time.